It's time.
The night her episode about the forgotten women of Detroit hit 1 million plays, a stranger left a 12-second voicemail. A man humming an old church hymn off-key, the clack of a lighter, then a whisper almost tender. I waited 26 years for you to say my name. When rising true crime podcaster Jada Reese reopens a cold case about missing black women from 1990s Detroit, her show's success jolts a dormant killer back to life. Each new episode is echoed by a fresh murder, staged to mirror the past. Pulled between fame and responsibility, Jada teams up with a weary black detective and a victim's fierce sister to stop the copycat or original killer before her investigation scripts the next crime. The deeper she digs, the more she learns the cases were buried by neglect, prejudice, and purposeful erasure, and that the killer's writing to her, writing through her, and writing around the parts of Detroit no one with power ever bothers to read. Before we get into the case file, just a quick note. If stories of hidden motives, dead ends, and unexpected turns are your thing, make sure you're subscribed. Hit the bell so the next mystery finds you first. Now, let's open the file. The voicemail lands at 2:07 a.m., just as the analytics graph surges on my cracked MacBook and the studio ceiling rattles from the bar downstairs letting out. Detroit sweats in August like it has a fever. My window unit coughs stale air, and the city answers with sirens that sound tired and practiced, like the voice of a dispatcher you've heard for years. I put the phone on speaker and play it again. The hymn is, "His eye is on the sparrow," but wrong. Notes bent. Words missing. Humming, then a lighter, a flick, a breath. The whisper. I waited 26 years for you to say my name. I press pause and stare at the waveform frozen mid-peak. 26 years. 1999. The summer the girls went missing along Gratiot and Fenkel, when the police shrugged and said runaways, when the clerks at corner stores called them fast, when a detective said on TV that this community, they don't talk. He didn't leave a name. He didn't have to. I hit save. I hit record. Rolling, says Malik through my headphones, even though we share the same room. He's perched at the editing desk in his tiger's cap, a pair of headphones crooked off one ear. You sure you want to do this before you sleep? You've been up 20 hours. I can sleep when we stop him, I say mic check. You're live, he says, and spins his chair so his eyes meet mine steady, brotherly, cautious. Keep it factual. No grandstanding. I don't grandstand. You monologue like you pay rent on a stage, he says, and gives me a half smile. It makes me brave. Cameras are off. This is Audio the Quiet Place, where I make sense of other people's noise. This is Jada Reese, I say into the mic. You're listening to Silent River, Episode 11, The Ones We Didn't Look For. Tonight, someone left a message, not a tip, not a lead, a dare. I tell them about the humming, the lighter, the whisper. I keep his words flat, without affect. Then I pull us backward to June 1999, outside the Packard plant where glass teeth stuck out of every window frame and the ice. Green truck looped a jolly tune, while boys on BMX bikes watched the girls walk by. I tell them about Latrice Trissy Long, a beautician's apprentice, whose mother scrubbed floors at Sinai Grace, who twisted braids in the back of her cousin's apartment to pay for cosmetology school. She left the shop on a Friday and didn't show up for church that Sunday. The police said check back Monday. I recite the facts, and then the parts that have never sat still for me. The way we choose which missing people deserve a search party and which get a shrug. The way a line of yellow tape brightens for certain families but not for others. I play the last interview I recorded with Trissy's sister Lila, where a city bus sighs behind us and Lila says, "I learned the world don't like to look at black girls when we crying. So I learned how to cry and stare straight back. When I'm done, I cut the music and breathe." Moloch slides my glass of water across the desk. We sit with the hum of the city sneaking under the studio door. The room smells like coffee gone cold and old wood and summer dust. "Keep the voicemail off the feed for now," Moloch says. "Police first, yeah?" I nod. Detective Vernon Clay, major crimes, 28 years on the job. A gold shield's weight bending his suit pocket. A baritone that sounds like truth until you push. I interviewed him twice for episode 4. He said things like resource constraints and interjurisdictional breakdown. He also remembered first names, not case numbers. He'd gone home each night and dreamt about boot prints in mud. I email him the audio. I add one line. He's talking to me like he expects me to answer back. I don't sleep. I sit on the fire escape and watch the city turn its face to dawn. It's all brick and old bones, and I love it even when it's stubborn in all the ways that hurt us. Down on the sidewalk, a woman hustles toward the bus stop in a neon vest, her lunch pail swinging. A kid in pajama pants wanders by with his hoodie half on, the smell of weed spelling his direction. A siren wails somewhere toward the lodge, and a train horn floats in like a low moan. At 8, Clay calls. "Where are you?" He says without hello. "Studio." I say, "You alone?" "Malik's here." "Stay inside. I'm 15 minutes out." He hangs up. It sounds like protection and command, and a bit of warning, too. When he arrives, the room gets smaller. Clay is built like a memory of football. His tie is loosened like he's too skeptical to commit to a Windsor knot before noon. He listens to the voicemail 3 times, eyes closed, and then opens them on me like a searchlight. "So you knew this would happen," he says. "You mean success?" I say. "People listen. That's the point." "I mean theater. Killers love an audience." He holds up a finger before I can respond. "Not blaming you. Just stating weather conditions." I didn't play it on the feed. "Good," he says. "We need it clean. No contamination." Malik taps a pen against a notepad. "You think it's him?" Clay's face goes still. We all know who him is without saying it, the man who everyone forgot to name because naming forces belief. Back then, the cases never knitted together officially, and we don't know if we had a serial, a pair of men, or a series of sick coincidences sharpened by neglect. The women were black. The neighborhoods were dark to the city's eyes. The file drawers didn't line up. "He's clever," Clay says finally. "He knows the history. He knows how much it didn't take to make us miss him." He asks for the phone. I hand it over. He uses a plastic bag like a glove, edges careful, and places the device into a brown evidence envelope he must have stashed in his car, just for people like me. "Can I have a copy?" I ask. "I'm going to get you one," he says. "I'm not your enemy here." "I know." "Good," he says. Then, quietly, "And Jada? If you get another message, you call me before you call your fans." "They're listeners," I say. "They're survivors, families, people who have waited as long as you to be heard." His mouth twitches. Fair, but a killer listens too. He leaves with my phone. I watch out the window as he walks to his unmarked and rubs at the back of his neck like a man trying to push a headache back where it came from. Detroit glints hard under 9 a.m. sun. The city is wide awake. Every corner smells like bakery sugar, motor oil, and someone's backyard grill. Malik hands me his spare Android and looks like he wants to scold me or the whole world. You need a coffee. Then you need a nap. I need Layla, I say. He knows better than to argue. He's watched me choose obsession over rest since high school debate team, when I learned how to talk so fast the judge forgot to look at my hair. He drives. Lila's shop sits on the corner of Linwood and Euclid, next to a Pentecostal church that baked the heat of choirs into the cinder block walls. The sign says Blessed Hands. The bell on the door tings us in, and the air smells like hair grease, cigarettes someone pretended to not smoke, and a cinnamon broom. 2 chairs are occupied by women with half their hair braided and their phones propped against a bottle of edge control. A child in pink beads claps along to a TikTok. Layla's at the back, her hands moving like prayer over a teenager's head, parting, feeding, tucking. She looks up, and the sharpness in her eyes softens when she sees me. Look at you, famous, she says, which is her way of saying, don't you forget your feet know how to walk in here. It's not like that. What's that look? You got news or you got trouble? Both, I say. She finishes the braid with a flick, dips the ends in a jar of boiling water the way our mothers did, then kisses the top of the girl's head. Go on, back for your buns, she tells the kid's aunt, and then nods me toward the storage closet/office. We weave past posters of braiding styles and a calendar with a Rottweiler in sunglasses. Inside, the office holds a desk that used to be a card table, a fan that whirs like it's clapping, and a shoebox of old flyers Trissy's face duplicated in grainy black and white, the letters missing faded. I tell Layla about the voicemail. I watch the muscles around her mouth harden. So he wants to be seen, she says, voice low. He wants to be held in your mouth when you talk. I won't give him that. He already took it, baby. Don't matter if you mean it. I thought you'd tell me not to stop. She looks at me, really looks, through whatever brand new shine the world has thrown on me, like she's counting my bones and their fractures. I would never tell you to stop. It's the first time anyone made them say my sister's name without asking me to serve punch. But I am going to tell you to be careful how you aim. Aim? You pointing a gun and didn't know it, she says. Every episode you do, another family remembers where they hid the rage, and the police remember to pick up a phone, and a sick man remembers how to hum and how to kill. You aiming. So aim right. The shop bell tings. A man's voice floats back, too loud, a salesman grins strapped to syllables. We're looking for the owner. Layla steps past me. You found her, she says, and her tone reverts to public bright, cared for, a little armored. 2 men in navy polos stand at the front, carrying clipboards like shields. The words AdStar Media shine on their sleeves. The taller one wears a beard, like it was engineered. The smaller one's smile never touches his eyes. We represent the Detroit True Story Festival, Beard says, like we're supposed to have heard of it. We've got a new city partnership, vendors, sponsors, podcasts, the whole thing. We're curating a community remembrance for. He consults his page. Teresa Long. He mangles Trissy's name. Layla blinks. The old flyers in the shoebox tremble with the fans' applause. Her name is Latrice. We already remembered her. We remember her all the time. We're offering stipends, Smiler says, as if money is salve. Exposure, featuring one of Detroit's breakout voices in true crime. His eyes clock me like a target. Ms. Reese, your show. Silent Road? Silent River, I say. Right, right. We'd love a live taping. We think it's so powerful. What you're doing, giving a voice to the voiceless. Layla's nostrils flare. Her hands fold in front of her like in church, when you're thinking about throwing a hymn book. We got our own voices. We not voiceless. We got y'all ignoring. Okay, Beard says, pivoting with practiced charm. We just know audiences love these stories right now. The city's paying attention. This is a chance to build something, you know? You mean sell something, I say. They both turn the smiles on me. Smiler says, we're uplifting and praising Ms. Reese's brave work. I feel heat rise under my collar. We don't need your festival to remember our dead. And if you really wanted the help, you'd go ask the mayor to release the overtime funds he froze the year these girls went missing, and then call the precinct and ask them why a black girl has to be missing 3 days before y'all print a flyer. Or maybe stop calling girls these stories like they're Netflix categories. Beard's eyebrows dip. The charm curdles. We're just trying to partner. Partner with your mouth closed, Layla says. Buy some ad time on Jada's show and cut a check for the reward fund. Otherwise, get out my shop. They go, the bell tinkling innocently, as if it didn't just witness a small exorcism. Layla leans against the counter and looks at me. They smell your heat. I know. They gonna try to put it on a poster and sell it to white ladies from Grosse Pointe. Don't you let them. She straightens and grabs her purse. We going somewhere. Where? To church. I ain't been in a while. You don't have to believe to look at records, she says, pushing open the shop door. To the room. Chanel, watch the register. I'm running to Mount Holiness. If anyone asks, I'm hunting devils. We drive down Linwood toward where the street remembers the riots and the city tried to forget. Mount Holiness is a brick building with windows, stained like someone spilled fruit punch and called it a miracle. Inside, the secretary recognizes Layla and tries not to recognize me. I'm too recognizable now in a way that has made me a worse grocery shopper, but a better tool for pulling paper out of drawers where people hid it. In the basement, we paw through boxes while a group upstairs sings in Spanish and English and then just hums. Because humming is universal. The papers smell like mildew and pledges. We find old program booklets and rosters. And then, at the bottom of a milk crate, a stack of youth group sign-in sheets from summer. 1,999. Layla presses her finger to a name. Trissy, she whispers. Last time she signed anything, it was probably a time card we never saw. Her finger slides down the page. She goes still. And look here, a second signature. Same day, different column. Who? I ask. She says a name that knocks 26 years into the room, like dust shaken out of a curtain. It's a deacon who sat on the police oversight board in 2001 when families begged them for resources. He spoke on TV about personal responsibility and parenting. He told black girls to keep their skirts long. He died in 2010, lionized. His son owns a construction company that bids on city contracts now. The last time I saw his name was on a sign at a groundbreaking where the mayor cut a ribbon and everyone pretended the ground wasn't graveyard soft. You think I start? I think men hide under light all the time, Layla says. He ran the van that took the girls to the lake for youth group and never once stayed for the girls' track meets. He didn't help nobody move dorm furniture when they got scholarships. He told them to smile more and to sit like ladies. When we leave the church, the air hits us like we'd been underwater. The lake breeze sneaks a cool hand down Euclid. My phone, the cheap one, Malish shoved at me, buzzes 3 times. Unknown number. Text messages in a stack. You said my name. You will know it when you hear it. Next episode Thursday? I don't like to wait. My stomach turns. The texts keep coming. 3 dots of thought forming and evaporating. I open my mouth for air and pull in a scent that doesn't belong, something chemical. Bleach. It's a trick of the mind. It must be. I call Clay. We've got texts now, I say, from a new number. I'll send someone to pick the phone up. Do not engage. Do you sleep? Not this week, he says, and I can hear the shuffle of papers, the clink of a coffee mug. Listen, there's something else. A woman was found this morning near the riverfront, down by the old salt docks. The world tilts. How old? I ask. though I can't say why age matters. It all matters. It never matters. 30, he says. Working whore. Black. No ID on her. It's staged. Staged how? He hesitates. It echoes Latris Long's case. What you described in your trailer for episode 11. My mouth fills with the taste of pennies. I lean against the church's warm brick so I don't tip into the ground. Layla touches my elbow. Her face is pure stone. Where? I ask. Riverfront, under the freeway, he says. Uniforms are blocking it off, but don't come down here. I'm serious, Jonah. We botched enough scenes in 1999. Don't make me arrest you to keep you from stepping on a footprint. Text me when you can tell me her name, I say. Text me even if she doesn't have one yet. He hangs up, and I'm angry at him for doing his job and at the air for staying the same temperature. By the time Malik drops me back at the studio, the world has decided to be noon. He gives me a hug that's more bone than flesh and says, power nap. Non-negotiable. I'll sit on the phone like a mother hen. You're the cutest hen, I say, and he laughs so I don't have to. When I close the studio door, the room darkens into that specific good silence that microphones respect. I lay on the old velvet couch where guests have cried. My head hits the throw pillow and the city slips under the door like a lullaby. I fall asleep in a way that feels like jumping. I wake to banging. The kind your body recognizes before your ears do, because it shakes the bed frame before it reaches the drum of your head. Jonah, Malik's voice, muffled. Package. I open the door, and he stands there, holding a courier box with no company name on it, sweaty from running up the stairs, his hat pushed back like he's hoping his hair can process the world better than his brain. It was on the stoop, he says, left, not delivered. I stare at the box as if it will interpret itself if I wait long enough. The weight of it is wrong. Too heavy for documents. Too light for equipment. I slice the tape with my thumbnail and peel the flaps open. Inside, packed in tissue like a gift, I find a portable cassette recorder, the kind with a clear plastic window and a red record button sunk into the corner. There's a tape already inside, spooled to the beginning, a label written in careful block letters, E11.5 River. Malik swears under his breath, a soft prayer turned inside out. Clay? I'm calling, I say, but my fingers don't move. The recorder is a bridge back to 1999, so plain I can't stand it. When we were kids, we made mixtapes by holding one of these to the radio and praying nobody spoke during the song. We recorded our mother's snoring and our cousins' cussing and the ice cream truck song, proof that summer existed. We recorded church hymns to send to an aunt in prison. This is a thing that holds voices and keeps them until you press stop. Don't press play, Malik says. I press play. A click, a hush, the sound of air in a room. Then my voice, lifted from the trailer I recorded yesterday, talking about Latris Long and the way she braided hair. The killer had recorded it off a speaker. My words sound tinny, far away, as if I'm already in a different world. My recorded voice says, Latris liked to stand by the river when she needed quiet, and then stops, because that line didn't make it into the final cut. I edited it out last night after deciding it was too poetic, too me. The tape corrects me. A man laughs once, a huff. He speaks without the hush of the phone this time, and his tone is different, lighter, almost instructor-like, as if he has a chalkboard behind him and a class in front of him who will not pass the module unless they listen. You were right to cut that line, he says. Too much sugar ruins the pot. But I appreciated the thought. He waits, as if for my gratitude. Do you remember what you smelled at the church, Jonah? He asks, and when he says my name, I feel it in my knees. Bleach, it's such a hopeful chemical, don't you think? I used it once in a while when I felt like starting over. The river does the rest. Detroit forgets all kinds of things if you let water sit on them long enough. He hums the hymn again, On key now. It's worse this way. It sounds like he's been practicing. I'm brushing up, he says. You woke me up. That's not on you. Or maybe it is. Either way. I like an audience. I reach for the stop button. Malik catches my wrist, shakes his head, and nods toward the little spinning spool. We listen. Thursday, he says. You like Thursday. That's when you publish. I like Thursday too. Consider this a collaboration. I'll do the scene work. You do the story. Let's give them a show. There's a scrape of chair legs, a door's breath, footsteps on concrete, and then a sound that takes me right out of my body, the echo of a freeway underpass, pigeons scattering, a truck passing, the specific gravelly chorus of the river licking the bank at the salt docks. The sound itself has a shape. It paints a ceiling. I know it because I stood there last month and recorded ambience for episode 8. He is standing where we stood. He is measuring our footprints, or laying his over ours like a tracing. Stop, stop, Malik says, and presses the button as if he can hold more than the tape. My hands shake. My teeth chatter like the room has gotten cold. I realize I'm still holding the box lid like a shield. My phone vibrates, and I let it. Clay can live a few more seconds without me. You didn't post that line, Malik says softly. You cut it. How did he? He's been listening longer than we knew, I say, and the truth sits on my chest. He's not echoing us. He's standing next to us. We stare at the machine like it might grow legs. I dial Clay with a thumb that keeps missing the button. He answers on the second ring. Don't throw it away, he says before I can speak. Don't touch it. We're coming. He sent a tape, I say. He recorded my trailer. He's at the docks, or was. I said stay put. There's a scrape at the bottom of my door. A paper slides through the gap and skates across the floor until it hits my shoe. Malik and I freeze. I look through the peephole, can see no one. The second door down opens. An old man shakes out a rug into the hallway and shuts it again. I pick up the paper with 2 fingers. It's a photocopy of a youth group sign-in sheet from a church basement. The edges warped where it was pressed wrong on the glass. At the top, a looped Mount Holiness stamp in blue. At the bottom, 2 signatures. Latris Long and the Deacon. The date, June 19th, 1999. The same day 4 girls climbed into a van at dusk and 2 climbed back out. There's a line drawn between their names in black marker. The pen lifted at the break where you would have curved the loop on the G if you wrote long in a rush. This line is drawn by a calm hand. He wants us to see it. He's daring us to go where he went. Maybe he's laughing right now in a parking lot, watching to see if we'll step where he points like kids in a museum, following taped arrows on the floor. A shadow crosses the frosted glass of the studio door. It moves like a person who knows they can move however they want. A knock comes, a short, polite, ridiculous knock like this is Girl Scout cookies or a neighbor asking to borrow sugar. Clay is 5 minutes away, Malik mouths, though he has no proof. He sets the cassette recorder gently on the table and reaches for the heavy mic, stand the way a man who has never fought reaches for a vocabulary he hopes he won't have to use. I step closer to the door. I don't ask who it is. The river hums in my ribs from the tape. The city coughs outside, and the hallway smells like microwave noodles and pine sol and the old boards of the building's spine. The same polite knock again. I think about Layla saying you're aiming. I think about the girls who didn't come home. I think about the sliver of tape in that machine, holding on to a man's idea of performance like it's salvation. Jada, a woman's voice says from the other side. It's me. Don't panic. My brain runs through a roster. My aunt? My building manager? Layla? The voice speaks again, and this time I know it, Detective Sierra Navarro, Clay's junior partner, who looks Filipino until she doesn't, whose mother is black, and whose father ran from a war before he fell in love. I interviewed her once about the backlog of rape kits and watched her eyes go full flame when she said the word backlog like it was a person she wanted to fight. She says, "I came straight from the docks. We found something there. Don't open yet. You want to hear this before Clay puts it in a bag." Through the dog-eared wood, I lean my forehead against the paint and close my eyes. I can feel the building breathing through the studs. "Okay," I say. "Say it." Navarro's voice slides under the door like a wire. "There's a message for you, Jada," she says, etched into the concrete with a nail. It says, "Tell me the next one so I can get it right." Malik tightens his grip on the mic stand. The tape recorder sits like a mouth on the table, waiting for a feed. I pull my head away from the door and open my eyes to the mess I made of a simple room cables like veins, coffee rings, a yellow post, it with half a title scrawled on it. Navarro knocks once more, gentler, and says through the wood, "He's taking your schedule." I look at Malik. He looks at me. Somewhere, the river keeps licking the bank the way it always has. Patient, willing to clean what we pour into it if we give it time. A door's lock clicks under my hand. I turn the knob, and that's when the lights cut out, the air conditioner chokes to silence, and the tape recorder possessed by nothing more supernatural than battery power keeps spinning. The darkness feels surgical, as if a hand peeled the light out of the room, clean and practiced. The air conditioner dies mid-cough. The tape recorder keeps spinning with a patient whir, the way a thing built in the 90s refuses to recognize our modern catastrophes. "Back away from the door," Navarro says, voice steady through the wood. Malik's silhouette is a plank against the window's faint rectangle. He grips the mic stand like a bat. My fingers, all hot and useless, find the edge of the table. The city bleeds a siren through the brick and then swallows it again. "Jada," Navarro calls. "It's just a block outage, likely a blown transformer. But I need you away from the door and the windows." "Is he in the building?" Malik asks. "If I thought that," she says, "you'd be in the hallway already." I can hear her on her radio, clipped and quick. "Clay, we're at Reese's studio. Confirmed power cut across the block DTE, says transformer fire 3 blocks east. Might be unrelated." A pause. "Yeah, understood." When she speaks again, her voice returns to me as if she'd never divided it. "We found letters, Jada. Rusted nails scratching stone. He's been to the docks often. The groove of it looks practiced." I move from the table to the wall, palms dragging along the paint. The lump of the deadbolt is under my hand. I turn it. The door opens inward to the hallway's weaker dark, where exit signs make a greenish pulse. Navarro stands there in a jacket thin as a promise, hair in a low bun, a flashlight in her offhand. She is shorter than I remember, and more immovable. "Inside," she says, and slides in, her light slicing the floor. Behind her, a uniformed officer, the kind whose baby face convinces grandmas, to offer prayer hands posts up with a hand on his belt, like a man prepared to apologize for gripping steel. Navarro's beam lands on the cassette recorder, and something like recognition crosses her face. "We got 3 of those in our evidence room," she says. "Never thought I was nostalgic for plastic ghosts." "He sent it," I say, with E11.5 on the label, like he knows our numbering scheme. "So he's a listener," she says. "He's a planner," Malik says. She looks at him as if cataloging the shape of his voice from past interviews. "Mr. Ahmed," she says, naming him right, which for a flicker makes this room feel like a place where people see us. "Clay said you found something at the docks," I say. Navarro flicks the beam at the table, then the door, then my face, like she's triangulating the right amount of truth given the hour. "We found a staging that matches details from your episode drafts details that didn't air." "You can't know my drafts. You put a teaser on Patreon," she says without judgment. I get the alerts. I suck a breath in too fast and choke on it. Even the air wants to rub this against my ribs. He's taking direction, Malik mutters. He wants notes. In the hall, the uniform coughs into his shoulder and pretends he's a wall fixture. Navarro pushes the door, most of the way closed with her boot. Her light paints the photocopy on the floor, the sign-in sheet, and the beam gives the loop of the deacon's name its own shadow. You been to Mount Holiness, Navarro says, not asking. We found this in the basement, I say. Youth group signatures. Same day as, you know. I know. She crouches, studies the paper without touching it. We've never had that on any official file, she says, a flatness in her tone that could be anger if she let it bloom. We asked for attendance lists back then. The secretary said floods ruined the records. The city has floods for whatever it wants to wash away. We thought he photocopied this to taunt us, I say. But maybe it was a gift, a push, or an alibi he's trying to hand to the dead, she says. Men hide under light all the time, but some of them also try to move the switch when it suits them. Clay arrives with the lights still out. His presence rearranges the furniture in a room. He fills doorways, like he's measuring what could come through them. He nods at Navarro, at Malik, at me, his mouth a straight line he can use to cut paper. Everybody all right? He asks. Not the line in that transformer, Navarro says. Electric's working on it, Clay says. We got squad cars at the quarters and another on the alley. His eye sweeps the cassette recorder, then the sign-in sheet copy, then the patterns of our faces. He doesn't comment on the tape yet. He taps his knuckle against the doorframe. Navarro, call in our techs. Bag that paper. We'll get the church to cough up the originals. That is, if the originals exist anywhere but in this man's pocket. They exist in God's memory, Malik says before he can stop himself. It's whether y'all choose to ask him. Clay doesn't flinch. I've asked God for more than one warrant in my life. He's never signed his name. Judges do when they feel brave. Today, I'll settle for a cooperative church secretary. While Navarro gloved hands the paper and logs its position with the camera light on her phone, Clay gestures to the tape recorder. You press play? I nod. He recorded my voice from the trailer, things I cut. We'll get prints off the casing, maybe a partial. He'll be smarter than to give us a whole hand, Clay says. Those old tapes pick up skin oils like gossip. He mentioned bleach, I say. He likes what it promises. Clay's jaw ticks. These pulling samples, he says. We got the scene cordoned off proper this time. The last two words are heavy. He speaks around the weight. You are not to go down there. I wasn't planning to, I say, and this isn't entirely true. Curiosity is the drug that keeps getting my name right. But part of me, the part that held Layla's elbow in the church basement when we found the sign-in sheet, knows my body in a crime scene is wilder than useful. A second unit arrives with portable lamps and a suitcase that unfolds into a science fair table of powder and swabs. The room fills with whirring and zipping and the smell of nitrile gloves. The power blinks back to life at some point. The window unit coughs. The ceiling bulb flickers on, then warms into amber as if embarrassed to have left. Navarro uses a cotton swab like a conductor. Clay watches everything. The uniformed officer excuses himself to pee and returns stiffer, face fresh like he splashed water over something he can't name. When they leave, the room looks the same but heavier. They take the tape and the photocopy and leave me with a studio that hums like a person who has something in their teeth. Malik and I sit for a while and look at the empty spot on the table as if we could will a better object to appear there. It doesn't. Outside, the city resumes its summer grind. The bar downstairs restocks limes. A man on the sidewalk argues into his phone about a cousin who won't help with gas. A bus exhales at the stop and then inhales again. I spend the afternoon with headphones on, not recording listening. I queue up old interviews, the way a person scrolls their own camera roll when they hate their face but love the memory. I seek the moment in Lila's voice where steel meets mercy. I rewind the minister's careful cough. I play a clip where a neighbor who used to wash hair at Blessed Hands says, "Trissy never let nobody talk down to her. She was sugar when she wanted to be, and salt when she had to." At dusk, Malik knocks on the frame like we don't work in the same room and sets a takeout container of jerk chicken under the lamp. "Eat," he says. "I'll stare at the door while you chew. You know I can chew and stare. You do both like you have something to prove." He sits. "If I say a thing that's going to sound like bossy big brother, will you forgive me for being right?" I meet his eyes. "Say it. You need to control Thursday." He means the episode. He means the killer's schedule. He means the way a man turned publication day into performance night. "Do a different drop," he says. "Throw him. Change the beat he's learned. If I publish early, it looks like we're reacting. If I publish late, it looks like I'm scared." "You are scared," he says, gentle as a knife. Which is appropriate, but there's also strategy. Don't give him your rhythm without making him earn the count. I smile because if I outline that sentence, it looks like a thing my debate coach used to frame and point at. But the smile sits wrong on my face. He'll do something whether I post or not. "And pick what you can kidnap back," Malik says. He's asking for a collaboration? Make it a trap. We grind strategy like coffee beans. What if we release a Minisode, E11.5, the label on the tape as a story about him trying to take our schedule? What if we spend the episode naming the girls he tried to erase, not the man who wants to be fed? What if we seed a false detail, not to catch him hurting someone, God no, but to catch him speaking? Clay would kill us. Or he'd nod and say, "Just tell me first." I do not want to be the podcaster who lures a killer with human bait. I want to be the podcaster who refuses to feed his show. I text Layla, "You at the shop?" She replies a minute later, "Close in 20. You come keep me company for counting the drawer?" On my way, I type and tuck the phone into my back pocket like a talisman with a data plan. Malik drives. The streetlights come on one by one, some late, some missing, a pattern of municipal care readable like a heart monitor if you squint. On Linwood, the neon of the church sign bleeds into the barber pole, 2 doors down, and their colors argue on the sidewalk. Inside, Blessed Hands is a softer world. The day's hum has thinned into a glow. A basket holds magazines nobody buys, but everybody reads while waiting. Layla is behind the counter with a calculator and a posture that says I carry my mother's back, and mine too. She looks up, and her face unfurls into a grin she probably won't let me see twice. "You look like you've been sitting under Heavy," she says. "Heavy likes me," I say. "Then we need to get you a smarter chair." We sit at the counter and roll quarters. The petty cash box is an old cigar tin with a picture of a man who looks like he never had to roll anything in his life. Malik wanders to the front to adjust a crooked poster of braided styles. The door tings and a woman peeks in, sees we're closing, and apologizes as if any of us invented time. "How's Clay?" Layla asks. "Stern, useful, tired. The mez pulling samples," she nods. "You tell him about the deacon?" "They'll go to the church," I say. Navarro moves like she remembers where secretaries keep their pride. Layla looks at me over the rim of her grief. "You going to the docks?" I'm trying not to be the person who walks into a trap because she thinks she can see feet. "You always think you can see feet," she says. "It's one of the reasons I trust you." Is that a reason to trust someone? It is if you're tired of being followed by people who swear they float. We laugh. It shakes something loose. For a few minutes, we're 3 people in a shop, under the familiar drone of a little fan and the heavy sigh of the day. Outside, a motorcycle cracks the night and then holds it together again. When we leave, We turn the sign to closed, but it doesn't make the world obey. The street carries the weight it always has. Malik offers to walk us to our cars. We step outside into summer heat that has learned to be polite after sundown. Layla locks the door, jiggles the handle the way every woman does, even after the bolt thunks. "Hold up," Malik says. He squints at the base of the shop window. A smear mars the glass, low, like a handprint wiped at knee level. He crouches, fingers hovering. The smear is white, chalky. It flakes under his breath. "Paint?" Layla asks. "Powder," Malik says. He glances at me. "Plaster dust." I see it then. A narrow cut in the window's rubber gasketing, an incision just big enough to slide a flat tool through. Someone tried to pry the window and then changed their mind, or wanted us to know they could. On the glass, faint but there, a single line traced through dust. It's not a letter. It's a number. 12. "Call Clay," Layla says, voice clipped. The steel is back, the mercy folded. We wait under the streetlight's sodium while a cop car yawns down the block. Clay answers on the first ring. He lives inside his phone now. We all do. "We got a mark on Lila's shop," I say. "A cut in the window. Dust. A 12. "Stay right there," he says. "Do not touch it. I wasn't planning to embroider it." "A squad'll be there in 3, he says. "Navarro is closest." He hangs up. We stand very still. I listen to my breath count higher than I want it to. Somewhere, a couple argues in Spanish, and then in laughter. Somewhere else, a dog complains to a curb. Navarro arrives with her seatbelt still swinging when she gets out. She shines the small light, not the big flashlight, the way a good cop learns to read a neighborhood without blinding it. 12, she says, contemplative. What does 12 give us? It's not a verse. I say, he's not the Bible type. He's the performed type. 12 could be Thursday, Malik says. The day on the calendar in his head. It's Monday, Navarro says. He marked this tonight. He likes arithmetic. Or addresses, Layla says. We grew up with boys who would leave numbers like breadcrumbs. 12 means the 12th door, the 12th step, the 12th year. Navarro circles the window. The light finds a second cut on the opposite side. He was prying when he heard something, she says. Or he was planting when he got interrupted. What would he plant? Malik asks. Fear, Navarro says. Usually fear. We file the report. Clay arrives anyway, because he doesn't know how to sleep. He takes one look at the chalk line, at us, at the open sign turned to closed, and I see a kind of guilt behind his eyes, the cop's disease of thinking you could be everywhere if you just stopped blinking. He puts a patrol car across the street and another in the alley and tells Lila he is sorry in a way that doesn't make it her job to forgive him. You going to sit on your shop? He asks her. I'm going home, she says. I got locks and a bat and a grandmother's god. He's welcome to meet all three. You call if anything hums wrong, he says. We disperse. Malik returns me to the studio like a person returning a borrowed book, reluctant but dutiful. He double-checks the lock, taps the door with his knuckles like a spell, and leaves me with my voice and my mess. The tape recorder's absence is a small hole on the table. I put the jerk chicken container there to keep the hole from looking like a mouth. At 1:17 a.m., I get the text, new number again. A link. No, not a link, just the text of a street address and a time. 12 Riverbend, 3 a.m. The address sits on the screen, like it bought itself a drink. I know Riverbend. It's a defunct marina turned illegal dump, a strip of concrete where the river shushes against tires and mattresses and secrets. I could throw a stone from there to the salt docks. I forward the text to Clay, to Navarro. I don't add commentary. I've learned when to let data walk into a room without dragging opinion behind it. Clay writes back 1 minute later, Do not go. Navarro writes on it. Sit tight. I throw my phone onto the couch, and it bounces off the cushion and lands face down on the rug. I pick it up and stare at my own reflection in the dark screen, weirdly long, like a person I know is wearing me. I pace the studio. The room is too small for pacing. It turns the act into a loop, a chew, a self-eating thing. I try to write. I open a new document and type. We must decide what story to tell when a man declares he is a story. I erase it. I try again. We do not have to gift him our nouns. I erase that too. I face the window, and the night looks back like a mirror that learned the trick of patience. At 2:40 Malik texts, "You up? Unfortunately. I'm outside. Don't freak. Just didn't like the idea of you pacing alone." I go to the window. His Honda sits under the streetlight like it always has, reliable, slightly dented. The little dent he never fixed because he didn't want to pretend it wasn't part of his story. He looks up and waves. I let the curtain fall and laugh, a short sound that fights with the room and loses. I make coffee because I hate myself and because I don't. The kettle wheezes and then resigns. The studio fills with the smell of burned hope. I pour anyway. At 2:54 Clay texts, "We're staged 2 blocks from Riverbend. If he's there, he'll see uniforms. We're going in quiet." A second later, "Stay put." At 2:58 Amai, a second text arrives from the unknown number. "Only one of you is invited." My mouth goes dry. I walk to the door because movement is the habit I know when fear visits. I open it a crack. The hall is empty except for the smell of someone's late noodles and the scuff marks of a day lived hard. I close it again. A minute later, my phone dings with an audio attachment. WAV. I don't play it. I send it to Navarro. She replies with a single word. Wait. I wait. I count to 60, then to 60 again, then to a number that doesn't want to be 60 because it never got to be 30. I count anyway. Clay calls. "We've got eyes on Riverbend," he says. His voice is low. I can hear radios, distant and disciplined. "We've got a bundle. Looks like clothing. Could be a mannequin. Could be a sick joke." "A mannequin," I repeat. He wants a rehearsal. "We're not going to rush a mannequin," he says. "We're sweeping the area first." Navarro breaks in on the line-some cop trick I don't understand. "The audio file," she says. "It's ambient. Water, freeway, no voice. It's never just ambient," I say. He thinks sound is a mood. "Stay put," Clay says. "That means you too, Malik." I look toward the window, even though he can't see me. I picture him in his car, with his seat reclined like a teenager, but his eyes on the street like a friend, because that's what he is. Time stretches until it feels thin enough to put your thumb through. I pace. I don't text. I breathe shallow because deep breath is a luxury, and because all my tall thoughts left the room. The phone rings again. Navarro's voice is crisp. "We've got the bundle. It's clothes," she says. "A dress, a wig. One of those foam heads from a beauty supply store." He posed her. "Posed her how?" "Like she's praying," Navarro says, and it costs her to say it. "Hands steepled." He wired them. I think of Layla's shop. The mannequins in the back. The way girls practice adulthood on foam heads and then become adults who own shops that men try to slip into through rubber gaskets. I sit down because my knees don't like their job anymore. "There's a note," Navarro adds, "written under the foam neck where we wouldn't see it unless we were looking for a reason to look longer." "What does it say?" "You brought her to me." For a second, the room tilts. Then it rights itself, and I realize it wasn't the room. It was my blood. He's punishing us for saying their names. He's punishing us for not doing it sooner, Navarro says quietly. Men like this always find an angle that makes them feel like the weather and not the arsonist. "What else?" I ask, because there's always an else. Timing device, she says. A cheap kitchen timer tucked in the wig, set for 3:15. No explosive, just noise. He wanted us to pick it up and flinch when it dinged. He wanted to teach you to dance on his count, I say. We're cutting the music, she says. Go to sleep if you can. Clay's posting a car on your block until sunup. The call ends. The room breathes in and out in a way that sounds like a person thinking about crying, and then not. I text Layla. Are you home? She responds, back by the door. You? Trying to make friends with coffee and failing. She sends a prayer hands emoji, and then, after a pause, a middle finger. It makes me laugh, for real, the kind that makes your belly remember joy. At 4:07 A, the building quiets in that specific pre-dawn way where even the mice know to let the sky have a turn. I sit and scribble on a legal pad because sometimes the computer makes the words feel like they have to wear shoes. I write. He uses our days like recipe cards. He mistakes attention for absolution. We don't have to set the table for him to eat. At 6, sunlight ladders through the blinds. Malik snores in his car and then wakes himself up with it and texts me a row of skulls and a coffee cup. I tap back a heart and then a second skull because we speak fluently in dumb now. It's how we survive the smarter things. At 8, Clay calls me to the precinct. When I get there, the lobby smells like disinfectant and paperwork. A woman at the desk with a kind of smile that has to be paid double directs me to major crimes. The hallway carpet is the color of neglect. The bulletin board holds a flyer for a softball game dated 3 summers ago and a photograph of a dog that looks like he understands regulation. Clay's office is wider than it is long because the building thinks his job is to take up space sideways. Navarro leans against the file cabinets, arms crossed. On the desk is a thin pile too thin for my liking. He waits for the door to click behind me. You got friends in high places all of a sudden, he says, voice neutral the way cops go neutral when politics introduces itself like an ant. The mayor's PR deputy called me this morning to ask about partnering with your podcast for a City of Remembrance series. The festival men came by Blessed Hands yesterday, I say. They smelled a check. Clay snorts. They smell a press conference. Says here. He lifts a paper. They want to announce a task force. The kind with cameras and no overtime. The last time we had a task force, Navarro says, my mother sold casseroles to the families waiting in the lobby because government forgot they didn't eat standing up. They want you on stage, Jonah, Clay says, smiling. Accepting a commendation for bringing attention to forgotten cases. The mayor likes to borrow other people's verbs. If it's a choice between their stage and no money for the lab, I say, give me the stage and a clothespin. They're not offering money for the lab, Navarro says softly. I sit. My bones do that shoulder sag they save for rooms like this. Then what are we doing? Putting one foot in front of the bullshit, Clay says, and some part of me I didn't know was braced relaxes at the honesty. We work what we can work. We get warrants if we can find the judge who remembers his oath. We go to the church. We trace Riverbend's old permits, and we look at the deacon's son. Construction contracts, I say, riverfront bids. Who moved concrete where? And why? Clay flips a manila folder open. Navarro pulled city records last month for a different case. Guess whose company subcontracted a cleanup of the Salt Docks access road in 2011? I don't have to guess. The name feels like a smudge I recognize, even when it's smeared into a different sentence. The deacon's boy. He took a lot of gravel out, Navarro says. Possible legal. Possibly a requirement. Possibly an opportunity. Opportunity to level tire ruts, Clay says. Opportunity to climb under a story with an excavator. I inhale. Dust lives in this building. I feel it loop my lungs. So we got a man whose family prayed at not holiness and then paved the path to forgetting. Allegedly, Clay says out of habit. Allegedly, Navarro repeats, but her eyes say I know a shadow when I step through it. Clay leans back. We're going to talk to him. Not because we think he's our man. Because men like him keep a calendar in their head for projects that suit them. You'll take me? I ask before I can decide if it's a good idea. No, he says. You'll wait here. I open my mouth to argue and shut it because he's right and because Clay does a favor when he takes the argument out of your mouth. Then I'd like to go to the church, I say. Ask for records, the way a person with less badge and more community might get a different drawer. He looks at Navarro. She shrugs, which is her way of saying I'll be at the car if the secretary needs to see a badge to find her heart. He nods. All right, he says. You go. You call me if they cough up more than hymns. Mount Holiness at 10 a.m. is a room, humming with vacuum noise and the smell of lemon cleaner. The secretary, a woman with sharp eyebrows and a softer mouth, remembers me too quickly. She sees the recorder in my body language, even if I didn't bring a machine. I tell her about the sign-in sheets and the flood and my grandmother's God. She warms by degrees, the way a person warms when you pronounce the names right. She slides a box across the counter. Basement saved these, she says. Who knew cardboard could be faithful? I sit on a pew, and the wood groans under the weight of records and women and men. Navarro leans against the end pew, with her arms folded, and her eyes saying, I'm here to keep you from getting old tonight inside this one room. We sift. The dust coats me in a film like the kind hair product leaves if you don't wash it out right. I find rosters, titles, pledge cards, scribbles, where teenagers wrote their rap names in the margins of scriptures. And then, halfway down, an envelope. Inside, a Polaroid. The colors are that particular near fade of 1999 summer sunscreens and sweat and optimism, all bleaching together. The youth group line dances in a gym, girls clapping, boys pretending to be too cool and failing. In the corner, near the water cooler, a man stands with his hands in his pockets, and his jaw set like he's trying to decide if someone else's joy is a sin. He is not the deacon. He is younger. He is the kind of handsome that photographs argue about. He wears a t-shirt with the church name on it and a lanyard with a key that swings down like a pendulum. Who's that? I ask the secretary. She squints. Brother Jonah, she says, as if the name is a food she hasn't tasted in a while and can't decide if it turned. He worked with the youth one summer, helped with the van, came in with, what's his name? The deacon's cousin, not family but around. Navarro's spine straightens and then returns to its resting height. We got a last name? The secretary pinches the bridge of her nose. It's in my head, but the alphabets got scattered, she says. He left quick. Said he had a job in Ohio. Came back for a funeral, maybe, and then nothing. She snaps her fingers once, twice, a third time, the sound a metronome for a memory that is being chased with a broom. Feltz, she says finally, triumph and apology mixing. Jonah Feltz. The name sits on my tongue like chalk. I've heard it. Not anywhere holy. I dig through my mental Rolodex and pull up a headline from the free weekly that loves to kiss power and bite secrets. Councilman Feltz fast-tracks riverfront redevelopment. A photo of a smiling man with a shovel and a suit that pretended it wasn't allergic to sweat. The caption said, Feltz, but the first name had been a J, and this city collects J's like coins. Councilman now? Navarro says, reading my face. Or cousin, I say, or father, or uncle. Detroit is a game of surnames. The pieces jump. Navarro snaps a picture of the Polaroid with her phone. The secretary slides me a plastic sleeve for it, like she's handing me a relic. Bring it back, she says. I don't trust city people to remember our dead. I trust us. We leave with the envelope, my shirt dusted, my throat chalked. Outside, The sun forgives us for nothing and warms our faces anyway. Navarro's phone buzzes. She reads and her eyebrows do the thing where they walk 2 steps and then stop. Clay says the deacon's son, lawyering up before we even said hello, she says. Somebody tipped him. Festival boys? I offer. Mayor's office? Gossip in the world moves faster than kneecaps. Sometimes it's the same thing, she says. We drive to the precinct to drop the Polaroid into a bag with a barcode that will turn it into evidence instead of a memory. I hate it for a minute for having to be handled, for not simply staying what it was. In Clay's office, the 3 of us stand there watching ourselves be grown-ups about things we wish we could cuss into submission. You know a Feltz? Clay asks me, testing the waters for what a citizen could say that wouldn't burn his tongue. Councilman, I say, connections to development. Checks signed with other people's ink. His uncle did odd jobs with the deacon in the 90s, Navarro says. He could have been Brother Jonah, or he could have been a volunteer who liked the sound of his own name. We need more than a Polaroid. Clay nods. The city will not give me his calendar without a fight, he says. They will give you an interview if you ask nicely and threaten to ask mean. I don't want to spook him into a performance, I say, but I want to see his eyes when I say Mount Holiness. Don't go alone, Navarro says. I look at Clay. He looks at me. We're not your chaperones, he says. We're your co-workers on a case where your badge is your voice. You call us from the parking lot. You record with consent. He smirks. You always record with consent, right? Always, I say. Though I think about the voicemail, the tape, the way he recorded me without asking and made me listen. I email the councilman's office from my phone. I keep it simple. I learned the trick of not giving a person enough detail to find their most practiced door. Councilman Feltz Jada Reese here, host of Silent River, working on a piece about youth programming in Riverfront, redevelopment in the late 90s and early 2000s. Would love to speak for 15 minutes on camera or audio. Flexible today. Junior. They reply fast in a way that says the office has a social media intern with good ears and a boss who likes to be called visionary. Of course. Can you be here at 2 p.m.? The exclamation point gives me a rash. I say yes. I pull Malik in from the hallway. He's sipping coffee that tastes like precinct machine and making a face like a man who hopes his mouth forgets. Field trip, I say. We're going to City Hall. Cool, he says. I've always wanted to be accidentally rude to a portrait. At 1:52 p.m., we walk under the arches of a building that was designed to impress tall men and humble everybody else. The security guard wands my equipment case and says, "You the girl from the talking show?" Even his compliment makes me someone's girl. I smile and say yes, because it's easier than running a seminar in the lobby. He waves us through as if we were always supposed to be here. Councilman Feltz's office is a glass box within a bigger glass box. The receptionist has a smile that does most of her job only some of the time and better when someone is watching. She offers water bottles like absolutions. "He'll be right with you," she says, and I can tell by her eyes that right with you means he's going to finish reading his own name in an article and then decide if our presence suits his hair. The man himself emerges with the brightness of a person who knows which camera to turn toward. He is mid-40s with a jawline that photographs would punch for texture. He shakes my hand and Malik's and performs the motion of pulling chairs for us. He sits. He folds his hands on his knee like a man who has been trained to look like he is listening. "Ms. Reese," he says, "big fan. The city is abuzz." Important work. A lot of women were abuzz in the 90s. I say, "We're late." He offers a smile appropriate to solemnity. "Yes." "We're recording." I say, "Okay?" "Of course." We roll. Malik checks levels. I ask about youth programming, about Riverbend permits, about cleanups and redevelopments, about partnered churches and volunteers. He answers like a river that learned which rocks to avoid. He says words like public-private partnership and underserved communities and transformational. He does not say deacon. He does not say Mount Holiness. When I slide the Polaroid across the desk in its plastic sleeve, he looks at it for a fraction and then looks at me for twice that time. Brother Jonah, I say soft. He tilts his head as if he's reading a word on the ceiling. Then he laughs a laugh that wants to be a chuckle and makes it only halfway. That's not me, he says. I didn't have that haircut. The receptionist laughs from behind her screen at nothing we can hear. Outside the glass, a staffer lifts a box of printer paper like a weightlifter. The paper sloshes within. Who is it? I ask. He shrugs. I don't remember every volunteer's name from 26 years ago, he says. I'm flattered you think I could. Your office did youth program partnerships then, I say. You signed checks. You prepped vans. You cut ribbons. He leans back. Ms. Reese, if you're trying to place me in your story so I make a good villain, I recommend you pick a better photo, he says, still smiling. Or at least a better angle. I'm trying to put girls in the light, I say. Men wander in on their own. We partnered with good churches, he says. If something God forbid happened under another man's watch, that's the tragedy we're all trying to solve. But my work is above board. What about Riverbend? Malik asks. You fast-tracked the redevelopment that never happened. I fast-tracked hope, he says glibly. The contractors slow-tracked their end. Your cousin had a contract for the Salt Docks access road. I say, Detroit is a city of cousins, he says, unbothered. We all eat together, or we starve together. He waits for me to flinch. I wait for him to realize I won't. A silence sits between us like a hot stone. He picks it up, snaps it in half, and decides to be charming again. Listen, he says, you and I are on the same team. I've got a press conference Thursday about a task force. I'd love to have you there. Will there be money for the lab? I ask. We're working with partners, he says, which is a synonym for no. We might be busy Thursday, I say. We might be helping a family remember without a podium. He nods in that politician way that bookmarks a person for later. He shakes our hands again like he's erasing fingerprints. We pack up. We leave the glass box. In the hallway, I breathe air that isn't conditioned to smell like permission. Brother Jonah, Malik says low. He recognized the name. He didn't blink right. He didn't blink at all, I say. Back at the studio, I press record because if I don't turn noises into story, they take over the house. I talk into the mic about the cassette tape, about the number 12 on a shop window, about the way a city can clap for a task force and forget to buy coffee for its own detectives. I don't say the councilman's name. I say Brother Jonah and let the name hang like a shoe you won't drop until you have a second one. At the end, I talk to the girls. I say their names. I say, you are not a story. You are the author. We're the ones learning to hold the pen steady. We cut. We mix. We schedule the Minisode for Wednesday morning, not Thursday. A small act of theft against a man who thinks he owns the calendar. Malik sends the file to the host, and the internet does whatever it does when it decides to be kind. That night, the building becomes a body I recognize. The pipes clear their throat. The neighbors argue in that tender way people argue when they've decided to stay. I lay on the couch with my shoes off and my socks on, and sleep comes like a thief. But a good one, it steals the hours I don't want to live twice. The dream is the river. No sound, just the steady mouth of it. When I wake, sunlight cuts the blinds into long coins, and my phone is a lit rectangle picking my attention like a lock. 3 missed calls. Clay. Twice. Navarro. Once. A text from Clay. Don't post anything else without talking to me first. I sit up so fast, the room tries to negotiate with me. Malik's text arrives a second later. Do not freak out. I freak out. I call him. He answers like a man who has been practicing his first sentence. We've got a thing, he says. I don't love telling you this over the phone. Tell me over the phone. Someone broke into the building last night, he says. Not your studio? The unit below the bar. They cut a panel in the ceiling. They reached up in the cavity. The owner called the cops because a ceiling tile fell onto his floor when he opened this morning. Clay's there. Why? I ask, though I know. Because of what they found in the ceiling, he says. A phone, lathe, microphones taped to the duct with gaffer, and one of your business cards. I can feel my heart as a physical thing, a bird that approved nothing and must now be told everything. He's been here, I say. He never left, Malik says. I throw on jeans, shoes, the t-shirt with the frayed collar I wear when I want to look like I'm not asking to be looked at. I run down the stairs, 2 at a time. The bar owner, Dave, with the tattoo of a fiddle and the face of a man who likes the sound of other people singing, stands on a chair, looking up, hands on his hips. Ceiling dust powders the floor like a child's science project. Clay is already there, gloved, eyes tracing the room like he's reading a paragraph of bad grammar. He points to the gap in the ceiling. I stand under it. The duct yawns, silver lining exposed. The phone, bagged now, rests on a table like evidence in a television show that is trying to be smarter than television. Another bag holds microphones cheap, but good enough. What did he hear? I ask. All of it until 3 a.m., Clay says. The power cut killed his little nest for a while. We think he noticed. He came back. He fixed it, or tried. We startled him without knowing it. So the outage wasn't just a transformer, I say. Could have been both, Clay says. Detroit has space in its heart for coincidence and conspiracy. There's a third bag. Inside, my podcast card, the one with my face and the logo and the email that now has too many people in it. On the back, in block letters, someone wrote, "Tell me 12. Clay looks at me. 12 what? He asks. Episode 12, I say. He wants a preview. But there's a part of me, the part that has learned, how numbers can sit on top of each other like lace that says it's a street, a step, a verse, a month. Navarro ducks in under the bar's low beam, hair pulled tighter than yesterday, eyes awake enough to scare coffee. She holds a piece of paper in tweezers. It's a thin strip torn from a church bulletin. Youth Lake Day. Volunteers needed. The date June 1999 in fussy font. Found this wedged in the ceiling near the duct tape, she says. He's feeding us breadcrumbs he pulled from the old bag. I close my eyes and see the Polaroid, the key on the lanyard. The way boys pretend too long and forget how to stop. I open my eyes to a city that keeps insisting it is new when it is just another version of our old selves, trying not to flinch. Clay's phone trills. He listens. He grunts. He thanks. He hangs up. Me has a name for the riverfront victim, he says. Came in with a missing persons call 30 minutes ago. Who? I ask. Kaisha Benton, he says. 31. Home health aide. Went missing 2 nights ago after a shift in Jefferson Chalmers. Her sister called. She lives 3 blocks from Riverbend. Kaisha, I repeat, feeling the name seat itself where it belongs. Kaisha Benton. I text Layla the name. She responds fast. Bring me her photo. We will say her right. Navarro approaches me with a quiet that isn't silence. Jada, she says, a question I need you to hear properly. Okay? Will you change your Thursday for us? Not for him, she says, her eyes steady. For us, to give us a window to move where he thinks we won't. I nod. We'll drop on Wednesday now. We already scheduled a Minisode. I'll hold 12 until we set it. I'll make 11 scream into every house he's built. Clay lets out air he didn't know he was keeping. Good, he says, and we'll talk to Councilman Feltz with more heat. I want to be in the room. You will be if you bring your mic and your mouth, he says. Sometimes PR men tell the truth by accident if they can hear themselves doing it. We leave the bar. The street is honest about its dirt. A boy on a scooter drags 1 foot for balance. A woman in scrubs uses her elbow to hold a grocery bag against her side so she can answer her phone. The city goes about the business of being a place where people have to have been born or have to choose to stay. The river does its one job. Back upstairs, the studio feels different, as if the ceiling learned my name. I sit at the mic, and I talk not to the killer, not to the councilman, not to the city. I talk to Kaisha. I say, we will not let a man's desire for audience force her life to be art for him. Your sister called. She loved you. We love you because loving is not a transaction, but a discipline. I end the Minisode with a request. Not for tips, though I want those too. For names. I ask people to say the names they carry in their mouths. I ask them to send recordings. I ask them to remember out loud. We stitch 3 onto the end, Latris, Kaisha, and a girl whose cousin whispered her name into my phone at 2 a.m. last year and then hung up. We let the names sit there without music, like stones that hold heat after a day. We hit publish on Wednesday morning at 7 a.m. exactly, a day early, a beat stolen. The download counter ticks fast, then faster, and ridiculous. The inbox floods with recordings, low and clipped, high and careful. The sound of the city remembering itself one name at a time. At 9:12 a.m., a voicemail arrives. 12 seconds, humming, a lighter. Then a whisper that sounds like a man trying to read his own hand. You forgot one, he says. You always forget the one. The message ends, my skin tightens. I turn to Malik. He is already downloading the audio, scrubbing to the last 2 seconds, amplifying the last breath. There is a faint creak in there, wood bending, and a bell, not a doorbell, a bike bell. Where? I ask, standing. Not Riverbend, he says. Not the docks. A shop, I say. A place where bells announce girls trying on their adult names. He looks at me. Blessed hands, I say, and my mouth goes dry. Layla, I call. It rings and rolls to voicemail. The short greeting that says, leave it, I'll call you back when my hands aren't in somebody's hair. I call again. Straight to voicemail. I don't wait for Clay. I don't wait for Navarro. I don't wait for my better mind to catch my reckless one and put it in a chair. I grab my keys. Malek keeps pace. We fly down the stairs, out into the street where the sun is deciding to be cool again, into the car that smells like coffee and fear. Tires squeal. Detroit watches us drive like a city that has seen it all. When we turn onto Linwood, I see the patrol car Clay posted last night, parked kitty corner with no one inside. The air seems thicker. The church sign blinks hallelujah in red, stuck on the last syllable. Blessed Hand's door is closed. The sign reads open because we forgot to turn it when we left. The bell tings when I push, a sound that slices me where I'm soft. Lila. I call, already moving. The shop is empty at first glance. The front chairs spun slightly from the last customers. A comb sits in a jar of blue stuff like a sword in a little lake. The radio whispers a gospel station through static. The back door to the storage closet office is ajar. I move toward it. The air changes temperature by 1 degree, enough to tell a body it is in a different thought. Malik behind me says my name in a way that wants to keep me and can't. I push the door the rest of the way. Inside the office, on the desk that used to be a card table, a foam mannequin head sits with a wig pinned too neatly. Hair in 2 perfect buns, like a child's first day photo. The face stares with its blank, not eyes. Between the buns, a kitchen timer ticks, not set to go off, just moving, just counting, because time refuses to not be itself. Around the foam neck, a chain of red string-a-loop. Attached to the string, a laminated tag punched with a hole like a price tag. On the tag, black block letters. Tell me the next one. And under the desk, on the floor, you don't see until you kneel to throw up or pray, a single gold hoop earring with a tiny nick near the clasp. I know it, like I know the line of Layla's jaw. She worries it with her thumb when she is thinking. She lost it once at a picnic in 2007, and we found it caught in the grass under the folding chair. It lies on the linoleum like a coin. The room tilts and then steadies, and my body makes a sound I don't know I can make until I hear it. Malik's hand lands on my shoulder. Clay's siren, far away, begins to be less far. The timer ticks. The mannequins don't blink. The shop holds its breath. I pick up the hoop with 2 fingers and my prayer. I hold it in the light. I say aloud, to whatever listens, to whoever stole our schedule and tried to inscribe his name over ours. No, I say, I will give you nothing you can eat. And then I run. The timer's tick digs into my ear like a splinter. The foam head watches nothing with all its might. I crouch, the hoop earring hot in my fingers, and the room tilts again. Only this time I ride it until the floor stops arguing. Back out, Malik says, voice a rope. No touching. Call Clay. I already did, I say, and my voice surprises me steady low. Call Navarro too. We retreat into the shop's front room. I want to knock every mannequin over, rip the laminated tag, set the timer to 0, make time behave. I don't. Layla taught me how to part hair straight with a comb and patience. I summon both. A patrol car takes the curb hard. Clay clears the doorway with 2 uniforms at his shoulder. Evaro follows, hair pulled tight like a promise. They sweep, bag, breathe. A tech photographs the earring in my hand, and only then lets me set it on a gloved palm as gently as if I were returning a newborn. Any note? Clay asks, eyes on the timer, on the string, on every corner Layla is not in. The same message, I say. Tell me the next one. Navarro scans the floor, knows a dog for chemical and nerve. No blood, she says. No signs of a struggle back here. He was tidy, or she was quick. She looks at me. Layla fought once. She fight again. She's not the forgotten one, I say. He said we forgot one. He wants me to hunt the wrong memory while he moves. Number 12, Malik murmurs. He wrote it on the window last night. Now he leaves the message again. 12 is a drumbeat. 12 Mile, I say, the words like coins dropping through a slot I didn't know was there. The youth trips went out at 12 Mile and Jefferson, to the lake, the sign-in sheet date, the Polaroid T on the lanyard. They used the 12 Mile boat launch. Navarro's eyes spark. The marina that went defunct, and then got a redevelopment bid, and then sat. Felt's pet project, Clay says, and the name curdles in the air. We got a squad nearby on Riverbend. None posted at 12 Mile. We can move. He calls it in, short and sharp. The radio spits back consent. Sirens decide to be useful. Navarro holsters and looks at me like she's about to forbid me from breathing, and then chooses the other thing. You come, she says. You sit in the back seat. You don't play hero. You tell us how your brain hears a river. I know how my mouth loves to run, I say. Make it walk, she says. We fly east, the city unspooling in broken grids and good porches. On Jefferson, summer leans onto lawns. Kids chalk bodies into colors. A man hoses a grill, clean of last night's forgiveness. The 12 Mile boat launch appears like a memory you didn't invite. Cracked concrete. A chain link fence broken in 2 places. A small sign the wind no longer reads. 4 squad cars are already there, ghosted behind trees. The river glints mean under high sun. A gull laughs like a bad god. Clay raises a hand. We stop in the shadow of a cottonwood that has decided to live through everything. We listen. Under the freeway hum is the softer throat of water. No him. No Mike Bell. A rattle like a loose screw somewhere we can't see. Ambient? Navarro says. Wrong ambient, I say. He's not here yet. And then, as if my mouth had summoned a cue, a van pulls into the far lot. The kind churches buy in hope and keep in shame. White paint, a cross decal sun-faded to a bruise. The driver sits too high and too still. Dark-capped head. Forearms roped like the kind of man who lifts engines and other men's mess. Clay's hand is up, palm steady. Positions, he says into his mic, voice a soft thread. The van idles. The driver checks the mirror and the other mirror, and the part of the windshield where you believe the world adores you. The back door's handle glints. Brother Jonah, Malik whispers, and then, no, too small. Navarro's whisper. Wait for the passenger. As if on cue, the back door slides. A shape moves inside no, too. A shadow like a woman shifting her weight to throw it. A clink, not a chain wire. The tick of a cheap timer like a metronome for panic. My hand grips the seat until it hurts. Now, Clay says. The world pours blue. Officers fan and flow, not tripping over old mistakes. Navarro moves like the kind of hope you don't brag about. Clay is a door in a storm. The driver freezes then bolts, not to the tree line, not to the water, but toward the maintenance road that runs along the chain link. Zeke, Navarro shouts. Hands. That name rides the air and lands in me. Not Feltz, not the deacon's boy. Not anybody the mayor would put on a poster. Zeke short for Ezekiel? Ezekiel Ware, the city electrician who installed a microphone in a bar ceiling without using a ladder. The guy who'd been at the church because he had keys to everything. The one who cleaned up after the city's messes and learned exactly where to hide. He runs like a man who has done this kind of math before. Clay chases him with a form built for a different decade and fueled by a different rage. Navarro peels to the van. I forget promises and fling my door wide. Inside, bound to the bench with plastic ties, tape across her mouth, but eyes full of fight, is Layla. She sees me and kicks the timer with her heel, so it clatters to the floor like a petty thing. Her hands are behind her body. Her wrists are cinched. I climb in, fingers shaking and sure, and pull the tape from her mouth. About time, she says, voice wrecked and holy. Cut me loose. A young uniform with a knife, the size of his grandmother's patience appears, cuts, the plastic yields. Layla drags air like a gift and looks me in the face like she's checking that my skull still hangs on. You okay? I whisper. He tried to talk me into being art, she hisses. I told him God made me a person, and my grandma made me mean. Go get him, she says, and record it. Give him the ending he asked for. I don't go to the river. I go where my ears point me. The maintenance road, a low tunnel under the boat launch's old office with graffiti layered like time. The air smells like bleach and mud and something else I will forever hate, pride. Voices bounce Clay's, strained. Zeke's, smooth in the way a man sounds when he's rehearsed. You woke me up, Zeke says, and the tunnel gives him back his words and harmonies. You said their names. You gave me a place to put it. You put it in the water, Clay says, breath ragged. You didn't have to. I made it clean, Zeke says. Nobody wanted to look until she, I know he means me, started humming into a microphone. You like your hero? She's the reason we're here. He steps into light. He's smaller than the idea I built of him, and somehow bigger too. Early 40s, eyes that skim and settle, a scar on his wrist like a half-moon. I see Layla's teeth there, 1999. I don't know it until I do. She bit him, and he never forgot. The forgotten one was himself. The one he believes we didn't see was the wound he named his fate. "Zeke where?" Navarro says, coming in from the other side, gun low, voice lower. "Hands." He looks at her with a pity that makes me want to break something. "You were never supposed to be here," he says. "I wrote this for an audience of one." "Write it from a cell," she says. He moves left toward the chain-link cut. Clay lunges, catches a forearm, the old football in him roaring back. They slam into concrete, and the tunnel coughs dust. Zeke twists with the strength of men who think the world owes them a path. Clay's knee buckles. Navarro is there before physics can celebrate. I step closer than I should. I hear my heart like a drum. I'm ashamed to love. I lift my phone. I hit record. The mic doesn't look like consent, but it is, finally, to myself, to the story we said we would tell, not his. "Zeke," I say, and his name is a door. He turns. His eyes land on me like a choice. "You don't get to cast me. I'm not your co-writer." "You are," he says, as if stating whether. "Thursday, right? That's when we do this." "Thursday is for him," I say, nodding at Clay, then at Navarro, then at the space where the girls are. "For them, for their families. Not for you." His face flickers, a film catching, and then losing the sprocket. For the first time, something like doubt edges his mouth. "You forgot one," he says to me, quiet, a man asking a lover to remember his birthday. "You always forget the one." "The one who lived," I say. He doesn't expect that. The tunnel echoes the silence he leaves. I take a step. "Layla bit you. You ran. She lived. We carried her through rooms full of casseroles, and men who told us to be patient, and you thought that meant she wasn't a chapter." I point at his wrist. "She wrote her name on you with her teeth." Navarro moves when a man thinks. It's her gift. She steps in, hands, cuffs. Zeke flinches as if steel is a surprise, as if the story never promised him this scene. Clay breathes in a way that makes me hate how long he's had to practice. A uniform moves in to take weight. The river, rude and beautiful, keeps hushing everything that thinks it's important. They walk him past me. He could choose to spit. He doesn't. He studies me the way a director studies an actress, and then realizes she has taken his script and lit it. "You'll make me ugly," he says. "You came that way," I say. "We just turned the light on." He smiles. It is wrong on his face. "Tell me 12, he says, almost nice. 12 is for juries, I say. They take him. The sirens call each other by name, and I stand under a Michigan sun that refuses to apologize. A gull lands on a dead tire and considers the case closed. Back at the scene, Layla sits on the van's bumper with a blanket she didn't ask for. The timer lies on the ground under an officer's boot, harmless as a coin. She looks up when I step into her shade. "You got him," she says, like counting, like answering a roll call. "We did," I say, and the "we" is important. It gathers people. I didn't think institutions could be. She taps the hoop earring in my pocket. I pull it out, set it in her palm like proof that anything can circle back. She laughs, cracks in the sound, then sobers. "He was Brother Jonah's shadow," she says. "He used the man's name like a key." The second twist arrives not with a siren, but with a press release. By dusk, word bleeds through. Councilman Feltz is stepping back to focus on family, while the city inspector general investigates his contract steering and a decade-old obstruction complaint surfaced by a retired cop who regrets, finally, how silence feels in his throat. The deacon's son issues a statement heavy with church and light on repentance. Navarro finds the subcontract file, where Zeke had been the electrician of record for jobs that placed him under ceilings and behind walls, including my building. Clay holds the paper like a man who promised to learn sculpting and ended up fixing a sink. We go home long enough to shower grief off our shoulders. Then I go to the studio. I sit in front of the mic like it is a door and a window, and a pew. Malik sits at the desk, the shape of safety, the sound of it. Layla takes the couch because she refuses to go home until she chooses it. Rolling, Malik says. This is Silent River, episode 12, I say. It will not be what he asked for. It will not say his name in glitter or glass. It will do what we promised from the start. Hold the girls and the women where the city failed to. I tell the story in a line that honors no man's schedule. 1999 like a wound. The youth trips. The van. The lake. The way bleach lies about clean. The Polaroid's lanyard. The key. The scar. The names. Lachus Kaisha. A list of others whose mothers said yes to my ask, and one whose cousin did. I tell the part where Layla fought then and now. I play the tape of sirens converging on 12 Mile. Just the sirens, no boasting. I include the sound of the river, not because Zeke wanted it, but because it belongs to the girls. They still deserve to hear water without fear. I do not mention the councilman by name. I say, a councilman, and let the city's mouth fill in what it refuses to deny. I say the oversight board failed. I say corruption can be a neat bodie and a lanyard key. I say neglect is a choice people make with their appointments. And then I do the thing Malik suggested that felt like hubris until it felt like duty. I invite other voices in. I edited them between coffee and exhaustion, a braid of sound. A grandmother saying her granddaughter's name like a hymn. A sister saying they called her fast and she was just hungry. A neighbor who carries flyers in her trunk still. Layla says her sister's name last. She says it once the way a headstone does, and then again the way a doorbell does, and then again the way a mother does when the kid is late but alive. I end with a quiet Clay never gets credit for. I ask him, recorded earlier that evening, what justice means to a man who has had to apologize for a badge and hold it up anyway. He says, it means I go where the names are, and I don't go home when the press conference does. Navarro says, it means we don't build cases out of women's pain like a scaffold. We build them like a shelter. I press stop. The room breathes. The studio light reflects in the window like a small moon. Malik turns in his chair, and his eyes are wet in a way men learn to hide from each other until they don't. Layla leans back and lets the ceiling hold her. Finally, the city returns the sirens to their chargers. Somewhere, a gull gives up and goes to sleep. We schedule the drop for Thursday at noon because we are petty and because we are not. I send the file to Clay for legal eyes. He writes back, do it. I send it to the families who said yes. I send it to the ones who said no, with a note that says I understand. I send it to the secretary at Mount Holiness, with a heart that I hope she doesn't misread as obligatory. She writes back, the flood didn't get everything, see? The morning of the drop, the city erects a podium at the riverfront, because cities cannot help themselves. The mayor wants to speak about resilience. He has lately learned to say, black women without swallowing the word. Layla says she will go if I go. Malik says he will go if we go and stand 5 feet back. Clay says he hates podiums, but sometimes their microphones are the cheapest way to put truth inside money's house. Navarro says she will be in the back, counting exits, because habit is faith. We go. The river looks like it always does. A mouth, a mirror, a mess. The podium wobbles a little. The press corps breathes polite. The PR deputy tries to herd us into a row, and we politely forget how to be herded. The AdStar boys, beards and smiles, hover at the edges like you can catch relevance if you stand close enough to pain. I pull out my phone and open the app. I take no stage. I take the story. Noon ticks. We publish. The notification pings across the city. People pull out phones at bus stops and behind deli counters and in church pews, where they should be listening to something else, and listen anyway. The mayor clears his throat and finds we forgot to clap. He claps for himself and stops. He pivots to a line about partnering with community leaders, which now includes people like me, because he has no choice. He says task force and overtime, and this time he says lab funding, and Navarro's eyebrows climbed 2 rungs of skepticism, and then stepped down a little. When it's my turn at the microphones, I don't step up. I stand where I am and speak plain. This city, I say, owes black women the basic intimacy of being looked for when we are missing and believed when we are found. Names belong on lips, not just flyers. Funds belong on ledgers, not in slogans. I point to the river. She remembers. We will too. The applause comes the way truth does here. Uneven, late, but real once it starts. Zeke is arraigned that afternoon, lips pressed the way men press lips when they discover they are not the only authors. The charges stack. Felt's office issues another statement. The Oversight Board's oldest member sobs on local TV and says she thought she was doing the best she could with what she had. Then she names the girls she did not do enough for. A list arrives on my phone from a woman in Inkster names I didn't have. We add them to an archive that is not the city's and so might live. That evening, the shop is open. We are stubborn like that. Layla stands behind her counter with a bandage on her wrist where the Thai plastic burned and a light in her eyes that is not forgiveness, not yet, but something like it with teeth. The community coalesces into a chain of people, dropping off food we didn't ask for, and cash we don't feel right taking, and then do, because rent is not a metaphor. A kid with hot comb burns on her ears says she wants to be a detective. Her mother says she wants her to be a chef. We tell her she can be both, that one teaches you to taste, and the other to find heat. Malik tapes a new poster in the window. A QR code to the victims fund we built with a local black banker who promised he wouldn't charge us twice for being alive. The chalk line 12 is gone under the Windex and the weight of a hand that decided not to be afraid. The cut in the gasket has a patch that will have to be redone by a man who doesn't use his work to get inside our lives. Clay drops by when the precinct coffee becomes a sin. Navarro stands in the doorway like a second lock. They share a look that says we made it to this hour. Clay buys a braid for his granddaughter and calls it tactical research when we tease him. He looks at the framed Polaroid on the wall brother Jonah at the corner of a dance he didn't join and shakes his head like he's trying to dislodge a past that will not. Interview request, he says to me, from a national show. They want you to come talk about the case. I'll go if they let me bring Layla, I say. I'm not going nowhere with Fancy, she says, then relents. Maybe if they pay for a new dryer for the back. Put it on your rider, Malik says. We laugh, and the laugh lands in the room and stays, like it paid its tab and earned the right. When the day winds down, and we've told the same version of events 8 times to 8 different neighbors who deserve it. When the food goes cold, but still tastes like love. When the radio gives way to silence, Layla locks the door. The bell tings in farewell, and then rests. She pulls a shoebox from under the counter. Inside, a stack of flyers so old the paper thinks it might be cloth. On top, a fresh one we made this morning, Keisha's photo, good and bright. A link to the fund below, a number to a detective who will answer. Layla puts the old and the new together with a rubber band. She hands the box to me. Archive, she says. Me, I ask. Not the city? The city can build a monument if it wants, she says. We'll build a list and keep it where we can reach. I take the box. It is heavier than it looks. On the studio couch that night, we start making the thing that doesn't have a fancy name. An index by scent and sound, by cross street and cousin, by the barber who saw her last and the teacher who saw her first. Malik designs the database. I call it a kitchen drawer, and he calls it a server, and both are true. Families leave voicemails with names, and we log them. Clay sends us cases so cold the paper wears a sweater. Navarro scans and scans until her eyes don't know they're tired. We go on. The city goes on. We put one foot in front of the bullshit, and sometimes step directly in it, and sometimes miss. The festival tries a rebrand and fails. The mayor learns how to say, "I didn't know," without making it sound like a compliment to himself. The councilman gets very quiet. The deacon's son stops letting cameras love his steps. Weeks later, I get a letter in the mail with no return address. Inside, a cassette tape, not from Zeke. He will not have sharp objects for a while. A teenager's handwriting on the label, for my auntie. I press play, heart ready for wrong things, and open to right ones. A voice fills the room, familiar in its hurt, and clear in its claim. "My name is Nia," she says. I'm saying my auntie's name for the first time into something that will remember it. Her name is Tasha. I don't want her to be a season. I want her to be my family. I sit with that and let it do what it does. I call Layla. "I got something," I say. "You always do," she says, and smiles in her voice. I walk to the river the next morning, before sun forgets it owes us sweetness. I stand where women have stood for centuries to tell water secrets and bargains and lies. The mouth of it works, as always. I take a stone, smooth and gray, heavy enough to feel like a fact. I say the names I can carry. I lay the stone at the edge and a stack others have started, and no official sanctioned. It looks like nothing, and it looks like a future. The gulls cry, a barge groans. The wind picks up a piece of a hymn and bends it true. Under the overpass, pigeons beat their wings against the day that will not love them back and choose to live anyway. I go home. I make coffee that doesn't taste like burned hope. I sit at the mic, the little red light bright on my face. I press record. My voice makes the room honest. The city leans in like a cousin. The river keeps doing its one job. We do ours. We say their names. We keep the story, but not for him. We keep it for us. All right, here's the breakdown. What you just heard wasn't the full story. It was the part someone tried to bury. The part that didn't fit the headline. The part where a person, not a suspect, was lost in the process. This case showed us what happens when the system moves too fast, or not at all. When suspicion weighs more than truth. When justice shows up late, or never. But here's the thing. If these stories don't leave us asking questions, they'll keep repeating with different names. So if this one meant something to you, don't just move on. Talk about it, question it, pass it on. Because silence protects the wrong side of history. And sometimes, the only thing standing between truth and erasure is someone who chooses to care. Like, share, comment. Let the next chapter begin with awareness, not regret.